Your rebirth is here. March is the month of change, rebirth, and new opportunities and horizons. March is the start of the astrological and energetic new year, which starts on March 19th with the equinox. Hey, if you're new here, my name is IamSolTara. Welcome. I am a medium and I share alchemy practices from ancient Egypt and Atlantis. March is going to be the reset point for many of us. It's the reset point astrologically and also energetically. This happens for the collective consciousness, but also for the planet. In this video, I'm going to share insights about the super new moon, the biggest super new moon of 2024, and the eclipse, as well as the equinox, which starts off this energy new year. So the super new moon happens on March 10th, and this is the third of 5 consecutive super new moons. So for 5 months straight, we just have super new moon after super new moon. But the biggest one that we've had all of 2024 happens right before the energetic new year. And it starts off the moon cycle of the eclipses, because eclipses always come in pairs, and that's known as eclipse season. However, the new moon is what starts the moon cycle for the full moon, and so technically this eclipse season is being started by this super new moon on March 10th. So this super new moon is inviting us to go into a place of stillness. When it's a super new moon, we'll feel its energy much stronger because the moon is closer to the earth. However, we won't be able to see it. It's voidness in our sky. It's also known as a dark moon. And so this is reflecting what we need to do inside. We need to create stillness and go into the void space, the darkness within. And some of us, we're scared of that void. We're scared of that darkness because we are biologically programmed to be afraid of the darkness. It's not something that, it's your fault. It's because our ancestors, when it was dark, they knew that they were more vulnerable to getting attacked by other tribes, by other animals and predators. And so the brain is wired to avoid darkness. However, this is where we become enlightened. This is where we can bring the light into the darkness. And this is where we can transcend level of consciousness from our ancestors. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to evolve, not just physically, but also evolve consciously and spiritually. And so work with this void of the moon to sit with the darkness within yourself. Maybe that darkness is not necessarily the things that you're afraid of or about, like the world, but maybe things that you're afraid of about yourself. What are the things that you reject or that you're insecure about, or maybe that you just don't like about yourself? Take some time to sit with those aspects of you and make sure that you do this safely, because after all, our ego gets triggered very easily. And so just do this in a safe place. Maybe light a candle, play some soothing music that's going to bring you into a space of relaxation. Take a few deep breaths, because the mind is always working. And then when we take a moment to shift our awareness from the mind into the body via the breath. Just take a deep breath with me right now. Breathe in. Hold. And gently exhale out. Do you notice how in that moment we just went into the void? There was nothing. You were just focusing on the breath. Do that during this new moon, because when you go into the void, this represents the point of instant manifestation. The void is the space of no time where everything and nothing exists. And this is the place where you can manifest most strongly, because new moons typically are a time for us to manifest new intentions for this new moon cycle. When you go into this void space, especially with the super new moon, you are able to manifest very strongly. And be mindful of your power, because you are a very strong, powerful manifester. With your thoughts, you're literally creating a reality within this third dimensional plane. And you want to make sure that what you are manifesting happens not from this chaotic space of like, oh, this has to happen and this has to happen, and all of these other like players and data and all of these other pieces of information. But no, when you can come into this place of stillness, that is where the soul is going to talk to you. That's where the higher self is going to deliver its messages to you. And when you can manifest from a higher self soul level, that will ensure that you don't get any unintended effects of manifesting. Like, for example, sometimes people will manifest like more success at work, but then that means that they have to work more, and then they don't have time for their health or their hobbies or to take care of their family. And so that's why it's important for us not to do our manifesting at the ego level unconsciously, but more from a higher mind, the mind of the soul and the mind of the higher self. And this is a big start, because it's not just starting a new moon cycle, it's starting eclipse cycle, and it's also leading up to the new energy and astrological year. That's just 9 days later with the equinox on March 19th. This super new moon is also an invitation for us within that void space, within that stillness, to purify our mind. Like, so typically, yes, people talk about new moons being a time for manifesting and setting new intentions, but it's very important for you to cleanse yourself of what were the old intentions that you had, what were the old relationships, old projects that you have, and to cleanse your energy cords with those thought habits and those relationships that are not gonna necessarily nourish you in this new cycle moving forward, because the equinox is always a soul graduation point for us. And as our soul evolves, so does everyone along on our path evolve, and those who are not on our path or haven't evolved just will not follow us on to that next chapter. And it's fascinating because within Vedic and Hindu traditions, this is a time to purify your energy. And so some easy ways for you to do that is to go out into the sunlight and to ask the sun and the light to purify your mind, your consciousness, your body, and your spirit. I made a bigger video explaining the importance of practicing detoxing and the importance of purifying your energy, and I'll add that in the description of this video. In tropical astrology, this new moon happens in Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, again showing us that this is a period of ending, and the astrological year is starting off when the sun moves into Aries on March 19th. So Pisces is related to our creative power, it's created to our intuition, and this water sign is really reminding us to flow with the current. Now, eclipse season is being started by this super new moon, and the next eclipse is going to be on March 25th. That's the lunar eclipse, and the solar eclipse happens on April 8th. So between March 10th and April 8th, we're going to be in this period of eclipse season, and eclipse season is going to continue after that, but this is like, we're like in the midst of it. And during this time, you're going to notice that there's going to be no sense of stability. And I know as humans, we love stability. We know that we love knowing what we can control, and we love having certainty. And this is why you have to remember you are this beautiful physical being, human being, but you're also a light being. So now is the time for you to surrender control. So I know the ego likes to be a control freak and always want to know everything, but now is the time to breathe and push out that need to control and allow your soul, your higher self, to take over and to surrender to the flow of energy that's going to come from eclipses, because eclipses are always a time of fast change. So a lot of fast change happens in a short amount of time. That's why I mentioned that one of the energy themes of March is change. And part of what this requires you to do, it requires to go with the flow of like the current of Pisces, of the fish, and move with the current. The current is sometimes going to take you into a swirl, and sometimes it's going to take you into a faster current that's going to accelerate your journey. And the only way for you to test out these different paths is by actually taking the step onto these different parts of the current. And so this month is important for you to not really have a fixated view of how something is going to get done or how a relationship is going to be handled, but allow the information to be shown to you. One of the ways to get access to that information is by connecting with that intuitive Pisces energy. The Pisces energy is so sensitive, it's so intuitive, and the way that you can do that is by sitting in that stillness, in that void space. In this void space, it's like the mind stops running, and then the soul can be like, okay, here's all the messages, here's the information, and it gets sent to you along the path that you're going to be flowing through, right? Like think about a stream. Sometimes there's branches, sometimes there's leaves, sometimes there's rocks. And when those different challenges come onto your path, different pieces of information are going to come through. So just know that you will receive the information in divine timing, and set that intention at the beginning of the month. Another wonderful way for you to work with this Pisces energy is to tune into your creativity. So maybe you don't know how to answer a problem. Maybe you don't know how to deal with this relationship or to deal with this scenario. Then be creative about it. Maybe take some time to just dance, paint, sing, draw, use whatever creative outlet that allows you to get from here into more of like your essence, you know, where the information or the mechanics just flow through you. Take the time to create that space for you to be creative, because that creativity is going to nourish you later on at the end of the month. And at the end of the month, we're going to be greeted by the full moon lunar eclipse in Libra, which deals with relationships. And so that's why it's important for you to right now not necessarily like pull the trigger on like cutting off or starting relationships, but rather more so like tuning within what feels in alignment within, and creating a reset point for you to receive information for how you're going to deal with the relationship dynamics that are going to show up at the end of the month this March. And for this full moon lunar eclipse, we're going to have a special ritual and meditation where we're going to connect with our spirit guides. And in this ritual and meditation, we are going to connect with the fact that the veil between the dimensions is super thin right now because of the eclipses, to get guidance from our spirit guides, to get courage from our spirit guides, to get support from our spirit guides, because there's the universal law of free will. Just because you have spirit guides doesn't mean that they can help you. You have to actively ask for their help and also actively be willing to receive their help. And so during this full moon ritual and meditation, we're going to do a special alchemy ritual so that we can strengthen our bond, strengthen our connection to our spirit team, so that we can constantly be nourished, not just by their support, by their blessings, but also by their consciousness, because we're part of a soul family. Your spirit guides are part of your soul family. And so we're going to work together in a more conscious way so that we can walk our path with more confidence, more clarity, and more peace. And if you're interested, you can join that full moon ritual meditation in the description of this video. Every single month inside of Moon Alchemy, we connect with a different god, goddess, angel, and spirit guide so that we can unlock different aspects of ourselves, because all of the angels, all of the galactic beings, all of the beings externally in our spirit team, they actually are part fractals of us. And so when we connect with them, we're able to see different skill sets that we have inside. So for example, you're able to connect with Archangel Azrael, the Archangel of Strength. And then when you connect with Goddess Isis, you're able to connect with your sense of empowerment. So all of them are basically reminding us of the power that we have inside. So if you're interested in connecting with beings in a deeper, more conscious and intentional level, I invite you to explore Moon Alchemy in the description of this video. Within sidereal astrology, this super new moon is in Aquarius, and Aquarius likes to do things differently. And so with this new moon, consider maybe switching up your practice. Maybe don't sit in a meditation position if that's what you always do. Maybe it's time for you to practice automatic writing, or for you to dance, or for you to channel some art. Practice different things that are going to help you to connect with this information, because the super new moon is going to be filled with eclipse energy and equinox energy. That's a lot of information. And in order for us to distill that information, to integrate it into our consciousness, into ourselves, we need to do it in different ways. And this is the biggest super new moon of the year. It's charged with a lot of energy, so it can feel intense. So it's important for you to prepare. A way for you to prepare is by, remember what we did earlier in the video, focus on the breath. Create this sense of releasing control and like just go into March knowing that things are going to change along the way, and you may not have the answer right now, but just know that you're going to receive the answer. Again, it's sort of like the fish going down the stream. The fish doesn't know where it's going to be taken to. It could be taken into different currents, into different spirals, but the fish knows that it's going to get to its end destination. And so it's the same thing with you. We don't know how we're going to get to that end solution where you're peaceful, where you have loving relationships, where you have clarity. And right now we're sort of going through it to get there. And so one of the ways to go through it is by surrendering. That's another theme and a powerful technology that you can use with your soul, with your higher self and your ego hand in hand to have a harmonious month ahead. Once you do find that stillness, once you do find that sense of clarity and peace, then from that space, something I recommend that you manifest under this powerful super new moon is enlightenment. Enlightenment is something that brings light to all of our essence, our consciousness, our mind, our body, and our spirit. And the more that we can create harmony and light within our spiritual life, that is going to trickle down into our physical life, because everything is a wave before it collapses into material form. And that's something that's been shown to us by quantum physics and the idea of wave particle duality. So when your mind is clear, when your spirit is clear, that energy in its light form, in its etheric form, is going to collapse into your material world as thoughts, as emotions, as sensations that will create a peaceful and clear life. Something else that will also help you to prepare to deal with this intense and powerful energy is purifying your energy. And I made a whole nother video explaining different ways to purify and detox your mind, body, and your vessel overall. And that video is in the description below. And what's so fascinating is that the next big astrological event that happens this month after the super new moon is the equinox on March 19th. On the same day, Mercury enters its shadow period. So the Mercury shadow period is from March 19th until April 1st, when Mercury will go retrograde. And right now there are 0 planets, major planets in retrograde. Juno's in retrograde. And this means that we have a forward moving positive momentum of cosmic energy flowing in our direction. But then on March 19th, Mercury, which governs our communication, our analytical and thinking abilities, is going to slowly start to move into its retrograde position. So because Mercury deals with our mind and it deals with our communication, it's important for you, starting on March 19th, to be extra mindful of what you are communicating in your relationships, because this is going to build up to the Libra eclipse on March 25th, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the equinox on March 19th is what begins the astrological new year as the sun enters Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. This is also known as the energetic new year, as in the northern hemisphere we have the spring and we see all of nature coming back and blossoming, going through this period of rebirth. And in the southern hemisphere, we begin fall. And it's important for you to pay attention to where you are in nature, and maybe you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, and the easiest way to do that is by connecting with nature. Sometimes your blossoming period, your rebirth period, will happen first. So I live in the desert here. The first thing that comes out is typically jasmine, and then we have roses coming out. So every flower, every different species has its own blossoming period, right? So it's like, this is a spring, but first jasmines come out, then turnips come out, then roses come out, etc., etc. And so it's the same thing with you. Allow your natural blossoming to happen organically. And like that's the reason why I have this beautiful butterfly sweater that my wife got me, because like the butterfly, it doesn't try to pierce through its cocoon too early. Actually, if you were to mess with a caterpillar that's in its cocoon phase, if you try to take it out ahead of time, it will never be able to fly because it didn't have enough time in the cocoon to develop its wings. And so that's why you have to allow yourself to be in your cocoon phase until you're ready. But typically on March 19th, you're going to feel a boost of vitality and energy. The energy is going to be coming in very strong. The veil between the dimension is going to be at its thinnest it's ever been, because not only is it a super new moon, it's an equinox, but it's also the eclipse season. And so the veil between the dimensions is going to be thin. You're going to be able to connect with your higher self, your soul, your animal guides, your galactic family, your ancestors much more easily. And it's a very important time for you to devote to your spiritual practices. I know, I get it. There's a million things to do. My office is a mess right now and I gotta clean it and I gotta do this. I get it, but if you can take the time to invest into your spiritual practices during the 3 days, March 18, 19, 20, 21st, 4 days, if you can really take at least like 20 minutes to be out in the sun, to put your bare feet on the earth, because during the equinox and solstice, the earth energy lines, so you know how we have chakras, Mother Earth also has chakras, and we have meridian lines, Mother Earth also has those. So during the equinox, the Earth's meridian lines come into harmony, and a flow of electromagnetic energy, organic electromagnetic energy from the earth can rise, and it can heal us. It can create a sense of harmony, not just our earth. So this is why what's so beautiful about being a human, we get to benefit from the divine mother, but also we get to benefit from the divine ether, from the divine father. And it's this merging of the etheric and the physical. On equinox, we have nearly exactly 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night everywhere on the earth. Now this is not exactly, actually there's an 8-minute difference, because you know the earth is tilted, and so it's a little bit different with how much light it gets, but that difference is only 8 minutes. So there's 8 minutes of extra light in certain temporal areas of the world. And what's so fascinating about that is that if you look at the number 8, if we flip it sideways, it's the infinity symbol, and the past, present, and future are all happening at the same time. 2024 is also a universal year number 8, and 8 represents the sense of timelessness. And so if you can take the time on March 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st to connect within, you'll be able to access this space of no time, where the past, present, future are happening at the same exact time. And this is something unique, and that's why our ancestors all over the world created sacred sites just for the equinox, just for the solstice, because these are really powerful gateways. So the equinox is a period of awareness, it's enhanced light, and that's why our ancestors venerated these days, because there's a heightened amount of divine energy flowing into our planet. And you may have gotten sick early in March, and yes, of course, it's allergy season and flu season and all these things, but also there's an energetic cost to this. And so during the equinox, cosmic energy and light that traditionally cannot reach us is able to reach us during the equinox. And so what our bodies are doing is our bodies are getting sick because they're trying to expel out the toxins that we have in our cells, in our organs, so that we are able to anchor in the activations that will be flowing in with this equinox. And so this evolution of consciousness, this ascension process, is not just spiritual, but it's also physical. So sometimes when our cells, they're too dense, like let's just say your cell has a lot of heavy metals and it has a lot of toxins, when this cosmic fast moving particle of light is coming and trying to go into your cell, it is not able to receive it because the frequency doesn't match. And so what's happening right now is like our bodies are trying to expel out these toxins, specifically in our liver and our kidneys right now, so that our cells can become lighter and therefore a vibrational match, sort of like a puzzle piece. And then the two can fit, and therefore we can integrate these newer forms of light and consciousness and information. After all, light is information. So it's carrying sets of packets of frequency of information that we haven't received on this planet for a very, very long time. So our bodies over time are going to get better at being able to hold more light. We're very physical right now, we're very dense, but our light bodies are basically upgrading to version 2.0 during this equinox. So make sure you keep yourself hydrated. And right before the full moon lunar eclipse on March 25th, Holi is celebrated in India, and Holi is a festival that celebrates the arrival of spring. And it's just fascinating that this Holi is being celebrated right before an eclipse. So eclipses are generally, when the sun covers the moon or the moon covers the sun. And so we see either red moon or we see the sun totally blocked out, and then we see the ring of fire around the sun. And so that generally represents the light and the darkness coming together. And so I just thought it's so fascinating that Holi is being celebrated right before that. And yes, Holi has many mythical stories of why it's celebrated, and one of them is this triumph of good over evil. And so with this eclipse, it's also going to bring up a lot of the corruption within the world up to the surface. And I do expect to see major announcements happening globally around this time, maybe about corrupt leaders, or maybe some leaders even transitioning and crossing the veil, because when eclipse season happens, because the veil between the dimensions is thinner, it's easier for souls to transition and go on to their next reincarnation. So the full moon lunar eclipse happens on March 25th, and that's on Moon Day. Monday is named after the moon, and so it just adds to this extra powerful energy. Eclipses are always a time of deep change, and because this is a full moon lunar eclipse, this is a deep cleansing that we're going to be going through. Within tropical astrology, this full moon lunar eclipse happens in Libra. Your relationships will also be affected by this lunar eclipse. So like I mentioned earlier, be mindful of the conversations that you're having and think before you speak, specifically when it comes to relationships. This can be a rise in new information within a relationship. It can be a sudden ending to our relationship, but what it's really inviting us to do is to go deeper and look at how can I bring more love into my relationship. Sometimes we can bring more love by showing more of our authentic selves, or by thinking about the other person's needs before our own. And sometimes we can show more love in a relationship by removing ourselves from a relationship, because maybe that relationship is not the most loving for us. And so this is going to really shake up the way that you view your traditional view on relationships. And so one of the best things to do is remember to release your grip on how you want a relationship to turn out, and just let go and allow the relationship and the beings involved to find their course. This Libra eclipse is also going to affect our views about balance and balance in the world. We're seeing it happen right now with what's happening in Palestine, in Congo, in Sudan, in Tigray, in Myanmar. With all of these global atrocities happening, we realize that all of the focus has been on the West, but none of the focus has been on the global South. And so slowly, also the poles of the earth are also shifting right now. And so the collective consciousness has been so Western focused, and that hasn't been really balanced. And now we're seeing the two scales slowly balancing. And Libra is shown by these scales of balance. And so that's what's happening collectively. Also take a look at what's happening in your internal world. How is the universe, how are all these abrupt changes that are happening in March asking you, not forcing you to change? Sometimes we are going to be forced to change if we're taking too long to do it, but how are these subtle signs asking you to change? And the more that you can embrace change, the more harmonious the balance that you'll be able to create in your life. Otherwise, it's going to have to happen in more drastic ways. And that's just the nature of evolution. We're always meant to be evolving. In sidereal astrology, this full moon lunar eclipse is in Virgo, and Virgo is focused on the physical body, it's focused on the material, and it's also focused on our thought patterns. And so Virgo is very diligent. It likes to do things A, B, C, D. And sometimes those things cannot happen A, B, C, D, especially when it is an eclipse. So again, this is inviting us to maybe the way that we've been doing things, yes, it has worked for us, But if we can just take a step back and release control and allow the universe, allow the God source spirit creation and the eclipse to shift things for us, that at first is going to look messy and it's going to look ugly and it's going to be chaotic, and for all of my type A people, it's going to be a nightmare, but at the end it's going to be like, wow, this is so much more enjoyable for me. This gives me so much more clarity, more peace, more freedom. So if we can release thought patterns, if we can release our need to control, then we will actually be getting more freedom and more ease and more grace in our lives. And so expect your mind, your thought patterns, your habits to take a shift. Like, you will likely see external events that are going to force you to change the way that you traditionally viewed something. And so you have to be open to change, because that's the only constant thing in this evolution, including we have to be open to changing our thought patterns. So just think about those themes as we're moving through eclipse season, which is going to keep going for 6 more months. And so really embrace these themes into your life. And you'll notice that the more that you embrace these themes, that you're going to be going with the current rather than flowing against the current of the cosmos. And honestly, that's what this equinox is about. This equinox is about restructuring a lot of our thought patterns, our cellular structure, and our essence overall. Because it's not like forcing us to change because like it wants God source spirit creation, the universe wants us to do something a specific way. No, we're being invited to walk on a new path, to embrace new opportunities, new horizons. And as humans, our egos are ingrained to focus on what we know, on what's familiar, on what's established. And it's very scary to walk the path of the unknown, the new path of change. But if you can walk that path at the end of eclipse season, come April 8th, at the end of April, it's like a whole curtain will be revealed and open up for you for a new set of living, where you are receiving more love, receiving more peace, receiving more clarity. And it's just going to be night and day in terms of you're going to just be a different human, if that makes any sense. So this month is definitely about marching one foot in front of the other, taking it one step at a time. It is going to require you to make a lot of changes along the way, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong or you're not listening to your higher self or that there's something that you are messing up. No, the universe, God source spirit creation, requires a lot of tests and change. And all of the things that you're experiencing are going to make sense at the end of eclipse season. And so just put one foot in front of the other. Don't try to look too far ahead, but rather focus on being present and finding that alignment. Sort of like, think about a guitar string. If you pull a guitar string, it's going to vibrate until eventually it slows down and becomes still. It's going to take time for you to find that stability and for you to have that clarity and stillness and stability once again. And so right now we're sort of in that oscillation. And so right now the point is for us to be moving, to be changing. I'm wishing you an empowering month full of graceful change. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your subscribes. Much love.